I want to welcome everybody to today's EntreprenHer Show. My name is Heidi Richards Mooney, and I am the founder of the EntreprenHer Show and Women in E-Commerce. And we are delighted to bring to you some fabulous women from around the globe who share their stories of business success and sometimes failure and learning opportunities. Today, I have the opportunity to interview a speaker from the Office Depot Foundation Womens Symposium. Women in E-Commerce is a media partner, and we've had the privilege of interviewing the founder as well as many of the speakers for this year's conference taking place on February 16th, 17th, and 18th. And today, I get to introduce to you Whanadi Sobrevilla. She joins us to talk about her company, the Women's Symposium, and what you can expect when you attend. So let me tell you a little bit about Whanadi. Whanadi-Ann Sobrevilla is a mindset coach and the founder of the Affinity for Wellness movement. She's a warrior at heart and always has been. She went on her first hunger strike at the tender age of 6 and submitted Africa's highest and most majestic peak, Mount Kilimanjaro, at age 16. Wow. Those two alone are stories we could talk about for hours. Whanadi's workshops and coaching programs educate women so that they can achieve the same results with grace and ease by addressing both the external and internal drivers of health and wellness, including mindset, habits, and attitude. Women can heal by design and move powerfully into their purpose and passion with energy and joy. Welcome, Whanadi.
Thanks, Heidi. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's so wonderful to have you here, and I love the accent. So it sounds as though you may have been from Africa, South Africa originally.
Indeed.
Yeah, I detect the accent. I have a lot of friends from there, and I just love it. One of my very dear friends, Idalia Freitas, she lives in Portugal now. I met her actually in Portugal. She's from South Africa, and you and her have a very similar intonation. So, and a few other people. So it's a delight to have you today. So, you know what I want to do? I want to get right into the program. So tell us a little bit about your background, other than, maybe expand on what we've already talked about, what our audience has heard about you, and how you first got interested in your current career path. In other words, what's the experience that led you to that?
Oh, with pleasure. So my background is first and foremost in hospitality and retail, as well as corporate communications. So I've worked in various industries, and interestingly, looking back now, I notice how the silver lining, if you will, has always been connecting people, serving people, loving on people, anticipating their needs. And it's funny because, in all my ventures, whenever I was ever awarded anything, it was usually for kindness or caring, or I was told I was a good listener, or I was told I was a great cheerleader. And so in many respects, I think I've been a coach a lot longer than I've officially been a coach. And anyway, fast forward many years, when I was 25 years old, my mom gave me the most incredible gift, and that was the gift of being coached by a phenomenal South African life coach called Sharon Castle. And it was this experience, Heidi, that was so incredibly impactful that I decided, well, I need to learn how to do this. I need to learn how to hold space for people like this. This is what I want to do. So I went along, I did my neuro-linguistic programming training. That was 10 years ago now, which obviously equipped me to be a life coach. And then fast forward 10 years, I decided to, through my own journey of dis-ease to well-being, to do an additional certification in health coaching. So that's what led me to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And since then, I've just stepped into my wellness warrior, which now very much includes the physical as well as the emotional well-being of my clients.
So, before you tell us about your business, because that's just amazing, obviously many aspects of your life led you to that, but I want to talk a little bit about that 6-year-old and why you decided to go on that hunger strike, because I think people may want to know.
With pleasure. So what happened was I was living in South Africa. I lived in South Africa until recently, for the first 30 years of my life. And this story actually takes place in Greece. As a family, we traveled to Greece to attend my aunt's wedding. And we had returned from the island to the capital, Athens, as you know. And the one evening we were walking through this the city square, and there was this huge gathering of people. And of course, I was very curious, and being as little as I was, I couldn't see much except this ocean of adult legs. And my mom and aunt started speaking in Afrikaans to one another. So that's one of our South African languages, as you probably know. Mm-hmm. And that was usually the signal to me that they didn't want me to follow something. But unbeknownst to them, I followed along very well when they spoke in Afrikaans. And so I understood that something was there that they didn't want me to see. Call it intuition. I, to this day, can't really explain what it was, Heidi. And I let go of my mom's hand, and I just pressed through this sea of legs, and I made my way through the crowd and happened upon this little tent that was pitched in the city square. And I opened up the flap and I let myself in, and there was a priest. And this priest was sitting there, and he couldn't speak a word of English. I couldn't speak a word of Greek. But somehow he was so intentional, I think, in wanting me to understand. And perhaps as a child, I just tuned in instead of being, attached to language. And I somehow understood that he was making a stand for his belief. He was making a stand for his belief in Christ, and he felt that this movie that had been made was very blasphemous, etc. And so he decided to be on a hunger strike until they removed this movie from the cinema. And so I was deeply touched by this old man that was sitting there, and he was clearly in pain and obviously hadn't eaten. And by that time, my mom had found me. And as I was just so impacted by Heidi that I decided, well, if he's not going to eat, then I'm not going to eat either. So I proceeded not to eat for I don't know how many hours after that, in, I guess, quiet solitude with this man who just was such an impact on me. I mean, our parting words was him holding my hand in his, and he gave me some sort of a Greek blessing, and that was it.
Wow. So he forever changed your life.
Forever changed my life.
Isn't it amazing how these small, I wouldn't say it's an incidental thing, because that was not an incidental thing, but a lot of times small incidental things can change our lives in big ways. And something like that, as a 6-year-old, how it made you have a different worldview. And I think that's important to know. I think people, and what you do as a mindset coach is probably help people find a new worldview in some cases, I would say, because we all get stuck in this is the way things have to be, and this is the way things are, and this is the way things should be. And so having a different worldview tends to help a lot. So I want to talk a little bit more about your business and what you do to help people. And I think that that's a good lead into that from that story. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're very welcome. And honestly, I don't think I could explain any better than you just did. It sounds like you have a lot of awareness around the power of having the ability to reframe things for oneself. Mm-hmm. And that could be reframing a traumatic experience. It could be reframing one's language. And through doing that, that's when you can reframe and recreate experiences. So as you so eloquently put it, that's really what I support people with. I listen for their greatness, and funny, more often than not, I reflect back to them what they've told me, and then they think I'm the one that's wise, but really all I've done is reflect their own wisdom back to them. So I have the privilege of listening. I listen, I listen to people's hearts. I listen to the underlying desire. And as I say, sometimes we speak and we share, and we don't pause long enough to hear ourselves.
So true. So true. I think that we listen to everyone else except our own selves oftentimes. I have an incredible intuition. I've always had a strong intuition. I I wouldn't say I'm gifted or psychic or anything else, but I really listen to myself. And I think that's helped me get through a lot of difficult times in life, which other people look at and they say, when they've seen some of the things I've been through, wow, how did you do that? Because I didn't, I like I said, I just changed my whole worldview about it, as opposed to, oh, poor me. And now what are we going to do? That's more important, is what's the next thing to do? Because, and sometimes doing nothing is good, and I'm sure you teach people that as well.
Yes, well, that's where the mindfulness piece comes in, like how to actually sit and enjoy a meal with a clear mind and come from this place of nothing, as you say, where you're just present to what's going on in the present moment. And, I appreciate your insights into my field, because I can, once again, hear the awareness there. And, what I appreciate most about life coaching or mindset coaching or business coaching or any of the coaching modalities, Heidi, is unlike psychology or psychiatry. You don't need to take people back to the incident of trauma. You don't need to spend much time in the past at all. The power for me in the coaching experience that I had as a 25-year-old was realizing that we're working with what is now, and we're working with what it is I want to achieve. And as you say, taking those small steps towards that goal, as opposed to spending so much energy in the past that I can't change. I can reframe. There's this wonderful NLP saying that says it's never too late to have a happy childhood. I absolutely agree with that. Yeah. However, as I say, I think it's really key that people be reminded that the time is now. The time is now. The time is now to make the changes, to move forward, and to really claim what's waiting for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the type of person that you typically work with.
With pleasure. So I typically attract older women. It's been rather interesting to observe that process. I think my youngest ladies have been in their 40s, so it's usually in the age bracket of 40 to 65. I attract my mirror time and again, interestingly, often A-type personalities like myself, often women who are spent. They've worked themselves into the ground. They have compromised themselves. They have often not listened to themselves or their gut instinct like you do. And so find themselves in the place of going, well, is this it? There must be more. And I identify with that because I've been that woman in various points in my life. I've been in the corporate world where I pushed, and didn't give myself the time and space. I've been that woman who has struggled with perfectionism. I've been that woman who has, I've been challenged by hormones and all sorts of things that women typically experience in their later years. I've experienced plenty of that already. So I, as I say, tend to attract my mirror, as most coaches do.
Right.
As most coaches do. So yes, just incredible women that don't always remember that they're up to a much bigger game than what they're playing at the moment. And so together we start unpacking what's going on, we start unpacking what the intentions are, and we start climbing mountains.
Oh, wonderful. And that Kilimanjaro story, tell us a little bit about that, since you mentioned climbing mountains.
Yes, well, Kilimanjaro, that's a whole story on its own. It was really one of the most impactful, well, another, I guess, very impactful experience in my life. And interestingly enough, I didn't glean the wisdom from the experience in the moment. So it was only now, as the years go by, and I look back and I reflect on that experience, that I just keep getting so much wisdom from it. It was phenomenal. I would recommend it to anybody. There's nothing quite like venturing into the unknown, where frankly I was forced for the first time in my life to allow myself to be supported. At times there were life and death situations where I had to trust. I had to surrender to my guides. I had to follow. I couldn't keep pushing to lead and pushing to control my environment. And when you're in such a vulnerable place where you literally surrender to the elements, it's an awakening. It really is.
Yeah. And I can see how when you're 25, how you would have a different perspective of it, because it's more of it's an adventure, it's an adrenaline rush. You don't look at the deeper meaning of things, I think. And not saying that all 25-year-olds don't, but I think as we mature, we start looking at the deeper meaning because we get closer to, the end of our physical life, if you will. And we could talk about this esoteric topic forever, I know, and people would enjoy it. So tell us about some of you talked about your ideal client. Do you have any examples of one or two people that maybe you have helped and maybe some of the challenges they faced and how they were able to work through those challenges?
Yes, with pleasure. So it's interesting because whilst I've worked with different women, and obviously we all are very individual with our own stories and life experiences, and there's certainly common themes that I notice come up with my clients quite often. One of which is I notice how some women reach a point, especially when they're either approaching menopause or they're in the midst of it, or perhaps post-menopause, that there's this belief that comes into play that, oh, well, now it's all downhill from here, I guess. And that is what I like to make a stand for. It's just absolutely not. I'm not sure if society is to blame. I'm not sure where that idea comes from. But as I say, it's something I notice quite often with my clients. And so it's just about that reawakening. And again, remembering that we've still got lots of life ahead of us, God willing. And to start planning adventures, not anticipating or not going about life, I guess, as if you're in control or know what the outcome is going to be in the next few hours, just to go for it regardless. And so a lot of the work has been centered around befriending fear, believe it or not. Befriending fear is the big one. And that's where my work in NLP comes into play. So often as human beings, we resist uncomfortable feelings. We resist emotion. We tell ourselves that we must not be fearful. We tell ourselves things like should and could. I heard that in your language earlier when you were sharing. And so, it's befriending behaviors that we tend to judge. And what happens when we're able to do that is that resistance clears. So really what happens is you realize that whatever behavior might not be feeling so good right now, it's there to give you something. It's there to serve you in one way or another. And so with most of my clients, that's what we end up unpacking, is we identify certain behaviors that are cyclical in nature, because that's what tends to happen in life. We have these behaviors that revisit us until we're willing to learn the lesson, or we're willing to befriend that behavior. So that comes up a lot. Women working through fear, as I said, fear of age, fear of aging, fear of their bodies changing, fear of the unknown as a result of their bodies changing. And so that's where I'm very, very passionate about bringing the balance between the emotional well-being and the physical well-being. So the first start is always in the physical realm. We look at the basics. Are you drinking enough water? Most people aren't.
Right.
So you're dehydrated, you're not sleeping well, you don't have energy as a result of being dehydrated. And that tends to exacerbate that feeling of, I'm over the hill, as we say back home. I'm over the hill,
We say that here too.
Yes, and that's just simply not true.
No, I'm not over the hill. I've still got a lot of hill to climb.
Sing that song, sister. I love it. So that, we look at those fundamental building blocks, we correct many of those. And then interestingly enough, Heidi, when these women start feeling more empowered in the physical realm, then often their headspace just clears up, as a result. It's magical, or we look into hormones. Okay, what's happening with the hormones right now? Because some women come in, again, feeling not so good. They're feeling fatigued. They're feeling depressed, perhaps. And we do need to absolutely rule out if there is anything happening in terms of too much estrogen or too little progesterone, because that impacts us. So we correct that. We incorporate really yummy, nutritious food. We make time for self-care. We honor ourselves. And then, life is a joy once more.
So you work with women. Do you work primarily in person with women, or do you do any online coaching, anything like that?
So at the moment, up until now, I've worked with individuals. So it's been one-on-one coaching. That's usually by telephone. So I coach, like wherever you are, proximity is no matter to me. But starting March 1st, I'll be starting my first batch of group coaching. So, I'm up leveling and stretching myself to the next bit. There's lots and lots of women that are ready to do this work. And I'm very committed to getting the health revolution spread as far as I possibly can. So yes, we'll be doing group coaching soon. And that will be actually in a very similar format to this. We'll be doing Zoom calls, and we're having in-person meetups. So very much looking forward to that.
Excellent. So you mentioned about promoting and spreading the word far and wide. So how do you plan on doing that? In other words, tell us about a couple of the ways that you promote your business currently, and what's really working, and maybe some of the things that could help other people in their business. Because a lot of the women who listen to this program, and men as well, are always looking for little tidbits on how to get the word out about their own business.
Yes, of course. So interestingly, most recently, I said yes to the Facebook Live challenge. And it's something that I resisted for the longest time, because I thought, no, I'm not that girl that typically likes to be in front of the camera. Well, that's the story I told myself until I gave it a go. And I tell you what, Heidi, I've been having so much fun with it. So much fun. Because, it's given me this opportunity to connect with people. I think for people to get to know me a little more, some days no makeup on, some days I'm pouring with sweat because I've just had my workout. So they've seen me in all my faces, if you will, in lots of different circumstances. And so I think there's something very genuine that happens when people experience you that way. And as a result, it's been so interesting to see how people have been reaching out to me from literally around the world. Friends, old acquaintances, reaching out with questions, reaching out with their stories, sharing with me what's happening for them, on the well-being front. And so I think for entrepreneurs out there wanting to connect with their audiences, I think that's a really fun channel to consider for sure.
Facebook Live, absolutely.
Yes, so there's that. And then I would absolutely recommend for people to do small speaking engagements. It's another part of my business that I resisted for some time. And every time that I do step into that space, magic happens. People want to see you. They want to feel your energy. They want to be with you. They want to ask questions. And there's something very special about that. So I think as a start, what people could consider doing is find out what's happening in your beat, in your community already, and see how you can contribute to that conversation. Champion another cause if it's in alignment with you. And then you're going to meet some really interesting people. And from there, it's kind of just this wonderful knock-on effect. I mean, I wouldn't be talking with you had I not shown up at the Office Depot Foundation Symposium last year. And here we are a year later, and I'm chatting with you. I never would have thought.
And you're speaking this year. So let's talk a little bit about that. You tell us a little bit about your program without giving the whole program away, and what people can expect to learn from it.
Well, I would say first and foremost, come along so that you can experience it in person. This is something that you simply can't recreate. I will say that a mountain will always be involved. So come along and look forward to hearing the ongoing analogy that I shared last year, which is this idea that whether you're climbing a physical mountain or not, we are all climbing one way or another every day. So I'm going to be taking that theme from last year and contributing that to the panel. The panel being, without the queen bee, there is no hive. And I just love that theme that Mary chose this year, because it really is aligned with the stand that I make for my clients. Because as we know, without our health, there is no life, there is no mission. So I'm not going to say much more than that. I'd rather invite people to an experience at the wellness panel, and I can assure you it's going to be even more electric than it was last year.
Well, I'm sure it will be, because I've spoken to you and a couple of other of the women who will be on the panel, and I can tell you, I think you're all just such a delight, full of wisdom and just energy and all of that makes for a good panel. So I definitely will be there, and I'm excited. So why is it important for women to attend the Office Depot Foundation Women's Symposium?
I think first and foremost, it's important for women to get out of their daily grind. You know, whether you're a professional woman in the corporate world, whether you're a champion for your home, for your children, whatever you're up to in the world, us women, I think, we just tend to get ourselves into patterns where it's all about everybody else all the time. I see this every day. And the wonderful thing about the Women's Symposium is you're transported into this realm of powerful women that are vibrating at a very high frequency. And we're in this place of wanting to love on one another and champion one another and support one another. And most importantly, Heidi, that room, it is so clear that women want to call one another forth into their own greatness. And you know, that's something special. And that's something that you don't find just anywhere. And so if you're a woman that's looking to be inspired, a woman that's looking for an answer, a woman that's looking for just a place to just allow yourself to be, just be, to get rid of all the labels, mom and corporate woman, just to strip down all those labels and just come as you are, that's the place to do it.
I totally agree. What do you hope to personally gain from attending and participating?
What I look forward to, as always, with any of the Office Depot events, is I look forward to connecting with more powerful women. Every time I'm in that space, I'm just blown away at who's attracted to the event. I look forward to networking. I look forward to the stories that I'm going to hear, because I know that I'm going to be hearing amazing testimonies, amazing testimonies, not just from the fellow speakers, but from the women in attendance. You know, it's a type of place, Heidi, I don't know if you were in attendance last year, but the talking never stops. You go to the bathroom and the girls are sharing, and you're in the room and the girls are sharing, and during lunchtime and the coffee breaks, like there's just this chatter everywhere. Everybody's loving and sharing and hugging and crying, and it's just very special.
Sounds magical. I cannot wait. I have attended Office Depot women's conferences in the past, but they were many years ago. And then I reconnected with Mary recently, and I knew she'd had the last two and I couldn't attend. And I said, this year I'm putting aside the time. I'm making sure I don't put anything on my calendar, and I'm going to be there. So then I reached out to Mary and said, look, I'm going, and is there anything I can do to help? Like, I'd love to interview some of the speakers. And so this is how this all evolved. And yay, I'm having the best time, because this is one of the things I so enjoy doing more than anything, probably, is talking to all of the fabulous women who attend and who speak. And just, I think we learn so much from one another when we open up our minds and our hearts to do so. So
absolutely. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. So let's change. I'm going to change subjects just a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about some of the books that you're currently reading or would recommend. I've asked each of my speakers, so I'm going to compile a list from all the speakers and maybe share it with everyone once we're finished with all these conversations.
Wonderful. Well, I always have my nose in one or other of my reference books, which at the moment tends to be gut health. I'm very passionate about gut health and how disease tends to start and end in the gut. So at the moment, I'm very much in love with Dr. Robin Shatkan. She has a book called Gut Bliss, which I would recommend very highly. I just recently read Glennon Doyle's Love Warrior, which was phenomenal. Highly recommend that. And one of my firm favorites is The Gift of Imperfection by Brené Brown.
I love that one. I haven't read the other two, but excellent. Imperfection. I'm just writing these down because everybody has different ones, and I think that's what's really beautiful is that that we all have different interests, and some of them tend to be more centered around what we're doing professionally or what we love passionately. And I love the fact that everybody's got a diverse selection. So thank you for that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So let's talk. What is the best way to contact or connect with you?
I suggest people go along to my website. That's Whanadi.com, WHANADI.com. And there are links to my Instagram page and my Facebook page. That's where I share tips and tidbits about mindset. I share some of the experimental creations that I create in my kitchen. And so there's lots and lots of value there. There's also my YouTube channel, so if people would like to have a look at some of the Facebook Live videos that I've done in the past, they are welcome to look at that. And then if people feel like they would like to experience or explore the possibility of being coached, they are welcome to book themselves an awareness encounter. And that's where we'll have a chat, and we'll very quickly assess whether we're a good fit for one another. And if we are, then we set our course and we start climbing mountains together.
Oh, I love that. Awareness encounter. Beautiful. Well said. Any last thoughts?
Yes, in fact, for any of your listeners, my invitation to everybody today is just to allow themselves to surrender to whatever inspiration they've perhaps been ignoring, perhaps been avoiding, and to say yes to it today, to say yes to whatever inspiration is lingering, and to make one decision today that's in alignment with that inspiration, and then to surrender, be patient, and trust.
Love it. How beautiful. Surrender. Such an important thing that we must all do. Thank you, Whanadi, for being with us today. You've been just a delight. I've enjoyed having you. I want to thank everyone for listening and watching our show. And be sure and visit the Womens Symposium.OfficeDepotFoundation.org for more information about the event and to register. And by the way, you can save 20% off registration when you use EB20 at checkout. And again, I want to say thank you. Make sure you visit Whanadi.com. That's WHANADI.com to learn more about our special guest today. Thanks so much. Hope you have a great day, Whanadi. Thanks,
you. Thanks, Heidi. You too. See you soon.
All right. Take care.
Bye.